Selling a house is a significant financial transaction, and there are several common mistakes that homeowners should avoid. I'm Lauren, and this is Raul, and we are with the Schrader Group. One of the most common mistakes we see is overpricing the home. Can we talk to me about pricing?
Yeah, so pricing is that one thing that people are either going to love or they're going to hate. And, everyone has this idea of what their house is worth. We could thank our folks on the iBuyer programs, Zillows, and all those guys. They don't really know what your house is worth. They've never set foot in your house, but nonetheless, they want to give valuations based off of what the rest of the neighborhood is doing per foot, right? And then we also got to remember what, our neighbors did a year ago or 18 months ago when the market was super, super hot. Well, that nostalgic value is done with, and that's not real. So I think the real thing is just not getting emotionally attached to the pricing and just see it as I want to move, and this is how we're going to move. Because if we get stuck on pricing and we go too high, it could possibly negatively affect the sale of the house.
Right, absolutely. Because then you're eventually more than likely going to have to bring it down. People think something's wrong with it, and
100%.
then
100%. And it's tough because we're seeing that everything's kind of plateauing right now. We're in the fourth quarter of 2023, and things are leveling out. There's a lot of competition. Inventory is super, super high. So if you think with the idea of, well, we go high, they come in low, we meet in the middle, it's just not going to work anymore because you're just not going to get the foot traffic that you would if you price it right. And 9 times out of 10, if it's priced right, it's going to sell.
Right.
Okay? And if you have a one-story house and it hasn't sold in 30 days, you're overpriced. I mean, in this market right now, one-stories sell, pretty good as long as they're priced right.
What about deferred maintenance and repairs?
So that's one of my big things. I go on a lot of listing appointments, and my job is to get the sellers in a better position to succeed. And the easiest way to do this is to check off those boxes. So deferred maintenance can be anything from what you do within a yearly, 2-year, or 5-year gap. A lot of it has to do with caulking, replacing air filters, making sure when your air registers, or the vents if you want, make sure they're not dusty, right? Make sure your returns aren't dusty. Get the vacuum cleaner to suck all that up, because a buyer's going to think, oh, well, the air ducts got issues now, or they got to get cleaned out. Some other things, just making sure that all the fittings on the faucets are working, they're not leaking. I mean, little things like that go a long way. Paint touch-ups, sheetrock touch-ups, items like that. But the big ones are going to be, your plumbing, your electrical, HVAC, things like that. Making sure the exterior is out there. There's some lender-required repairs for VA and FHA loans. So like you need a 3-foot halo of trees around your property. So you got to have that barrier to where nothing's rubbing or anything like that. Unpainted wood rot, things like that need to be taken care of regardless of what you think you want to do or not do, because the lender is going to come back and says it needs to be done.
Right, absolutely. So a lot of people do spend time fixing up the interior of their house, but you also don't want to neglect the outside, right?
Sure, and I'm always that one person that's going to go in there and say, hey, look, if we're going to invest $1, we're going to make sure we get $1 or at least $2 back. I don't ever want to just button things up just to button things up because you think it looks better. I want to put the money where it's going to get the longest longevity and make us the biggest return back. But yeah, the outside is just like anything else. You're not going to go buy a car that has a whole bunch of dents on it. You're going to walk away from. You're not even going to look at the interior at that point, right? So the outside does matter. There's a lot of things that go on with the outside. You could do fresh paint on the doors. You could do fresh mulch, landscaping, little things like that. I mean, I always budget, $200 to $300 for the outside just to say, hey, we could spruce it up just a little
Absolutely.
bit.
I think the outside is huge. I mean, you always want a good first impression, right? You only get one.
Well, especially in this market. I mean, showings have been down across the city. So if we're getting limited showings, you got to make those count.
Yeah. So poor presentation is huge. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we want to avoid a lot of things. So I always joke around, like, act like your boss is coming over and, you're going to have dinner party, right? The truth is we want to declutter. People don't want to see your mess. I mean, the truth is they just want to go in there and see where they're going to put their Christmas trees or where they're going to do everything.
Less is more.
Less is definitely more. We always say, on a countertop, every 3 to 5 feet, we want 1 or maybe 1.5 items, depending on what the item is. But if you had a get together the night before and you moved all the chairs in the living room and all the chairs from the kitchen all the way to the living room and you're watching the game, the Cowboys maybe, I don't know. But say you're watching the game, put it all back. Don't leave it looking like you just had a party because it's just not going to make sense. Keep everything clean. I mean, just, cleanliness, it goes a long way, and just kind of the overall presence of, hey, someone could walk in my house at any given time and it can, possibly be the one that buys the house.
Let's talk about unpleasant odors. I personally am huge on odors. I feel like I'm very sensitive to smell.
Sure.
So
that's a good one. That's actually a big one. I think that's the biggest turnoff for most buyers when we look at the home process. When I go on a listing appointment, that's kind of what I'm doing. I get the first whiff of whatever is coming my way, whether it's good, whether they're making an apple pie, whether we had some fish from 2 days ago and we haven't changed out the trash again. So my part in doing that is to try to dissect where that odor is coming from. Whether it's in the floors, in the rugs, carpets, maybe we have the animals that they have a spot, they think they clean it all the time, but it's not on the top side, it's on the padding that actually where it gets absorbed with all the enzymes. But also, there's all kinds of things. Smoking, if you smoke in the house, it's going to absorb into the sheetrock, into the paint.
Yes.
And so anything that is cloth related, so if you have couches, it's going to absorb in there. There's just all kinds of different things that we look at. Cooking, if you do a lot of stir fry time in and time out, you're going to smell that kind of, going through the filtration systems and things like that as well. Just a lot of smoke, I guess, in that general area. But I do address that, and we kind of come up with plans because
sometimes they don't even know it smells; they're just used to it.
Exactly, because they've been going in and out of there day in day out. It's just part of their life. So when I come in, I'm going in as a neutral party and just saying, okay, there's something going on here, and then I'm not being straightforward like, oh, someone's smoking here, but I'm like, yeah, there's like hints of smoke, and they're like, oh yeah, smoking my favorite chair by, the recliner or at the recliner by the TV or whatnot. But there's ways around it. We get ozone treatments. We can do a lot of different things. We can do filtrations. If it's a matter of ripping out the carpet to get rid of that smell, we'll have to do it because we limit our buy pool significantly when there's an odor situation.
Oh, 100%.
Because people don't want to buy something that they're going to feel like it's going to be a lingering feel, right?
No, yeah.
So with that being said, I always try to do, and we have remedies for everything. Whether it's painting, we could get some paint on there. Filtration, air duct cleaning, or as simple as just moving the litter box to the garage, taking it outside the house and putting it in the garage for a time being, right? Just to get it out there. And the one that, it bothers every buyer in the world, I think, is when you walk to the outside and there's landmines everywhere, right? We could go and do our part and say, hey, let's clean this up. That way, number one, buyers aren't stepping on it and bringing it back into the house because nobody wants that. But number two, people don't want to see that and they don't want to smell it more than anything.
Right.
And it's just one of those things you're trying to tell a family, buy my house because you're going to be able to spend the afternoons in the backyard and enjoy life. Well, they're not going to see it. They're going to be like, absolutely not. I'm not picking up that stuff.
Yep. So. And every buyer's precious right now. So.
Every buyer means something to them. Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we see problems with the home or legal matters that have been neglected. How important is that to address?
It's very important because our job, number one, is to protect the seller. We have a fiduciary to them. So when I get to the appointment, I'm going over and I'm asking lots of questions, but I'm going to hand them a seller's disclosure, right? And it's going to go through the house. Does the house have cable TV wiring? Yes, no, unknown. Does a house have a hot tub? All these different questions we're asking. Have you ever filed an insurance report, a claim? What damages are you aware of? Let's just assume you are living in this house and every December you have a leak, right? Your leaky pipes, but it bleeds into your sheetrock. Your next door neighbor comes over and helps you do the repair, puts a little Band-Aid on it, boom, goes back to normal. Y'all paint it up, get through it, right? Then the next year it happens again. Y'all get through this routine. Great. Now you get on the market to sell it, okay? And we said we don't know anything wrong with the house and we don't have any issues with the house, but then the neighbor's meeting the neighbor next door and like, they're having a beer outside or whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, every winter the pipe leaks, and no big deal. He's like, okay. And then now in the back of the mind, the buyer's like, what is he talking about? And then come December, the pipe starts leaking again. And it's a bigger issue because now we have mold that's been there for a while. We have all kinds of other issues, wood rot, things like that. Well, that turns into a big legal liability because they knew about it. Yes. There's a witness that says that they know about it. And now they're going to go back to the seller and say, you tricked us, you deceived us into buying this house while you knew. And that could be a big legal remedies or ramifications because they're going to have to fix that, give damages, things of that nature. But then just jumping into just that, and of course that's a what if, but let's just jump into something that's kind of normal, right? Like if you know anything wrong with the structure, like you've had somebody go out there and do like an assessment on the foundation, but you said there was nothing wrong with it, but you had that report. Right. That's kind of borderline of deception, right? There's just a lot of different things that we want to prepare the sellers for to protect them because we don't want them to get in a legal situation. Have you ever got an insurance roof claim but didn't use the money to repair the roof. Well, there's clue reports that are going to go out. They're going to find out, and before we get to closing, probably about a week before, they're going to say, we can't buy this house because we can't get it insured because you got a replacement on the roof, and you had Uncle and Theo Bob come over and fix the roof. Well, they're not going to want that because they're going to want it repaired, replaced, and warranted,
100%.
right? So there's just a lot of things that go into it, but at the end of the day, we just want to get ahead of that. That way we can figure out what's going on. Is there any kind of situations with the deed? You know, was it grandfathered in? Was it handed down to you? Was there a divorce? Is there litigation? Is there any kind of lawsuits on the property? Liens? I mean, there's just a lot of things that go into that.
Absolutely, and it's good to address all that at the very beginning.
100%.
Yes. So I know we talked about pricing a little bit, but let's talk about how important, like what if someone is very stern on their price and they're not wanting to be flexible?
Well, to be honest with you, there's been situations that's happened, and sometimes we as agents, we as agents got to just say, hey, this is just not the right fit for us because, number one, we are experts in our field, and we can tell you that, you know, this house is probably worth $350 in a normal market, but you are competing with the builder today, so that $350 is no longer $350, it's probably $335, and they could go back and forth and say, well, the builder's selling the same house for $350. Yes, they are, but they're also coming with warranties, they're also coming with incentives, rate buy downs. There's just a whole bunch of stuff that you're not willing to do, so we're never going to get it showing. And then we run that route of where we go a little higher than we should be at just to see what happens. No showings, no showings, no showings. Rule of thumb is no showings, overpriced. Few showings, no offers, we're just a little bit out of range.
Right.
But if you're not getting a showing, it's not because of marketing, it's not because of all these other things that are happening, it's because you're overpriced. And people aren't going to walk into a house if they're already discouraged by the fact that the seller is not willing to work with the buyer.
Right, and I think what people forget about a lot also is that, you know, if it's priced right and you get multiple showings, if you get one or two people that really like their home, they'll be willing to even spend maybe more than you had it listed because, you know, it was in their price range and they don't want to lose it.
100%. And that's a great point because studies have shown that in the first 30 days, if you get an offer, you're going to get more of an offer in comparison to what you get at 60 days, 90 days, and so on. And typically, if we're not getting an offer in 30 days, we're already reducing the price anyways.
Right.
So what was the value add? Price it right to begin with, get it sold, get the stress off your back, get that money in the bank, and then figure out what you're going to do with yourself or with the family or where we're going to move to next. Because the longer the house stays on the market, the more you're going to get the investors calling. I'm going to do a subject to property or try to assume your loan or all these kind of creative financing because the real buyers that want to buy that house have already checked out and they've looked at something else because we're just not realistic.
Another common mistake is inadequate marketing or not hiring a realtor to help you with your listing. And we know how important it is to hire a realtor, but what are some things that you could elaborate on? Yeah,
so, you know, a lot of people back in 2020 to 2022 thought they could do everything because all you had to do was set a sign in the yard and then all of a sudden, boof, you had multiple offers. Even if you price it right or wrong, you still broke out because you got lucky. The market's changed. It's back to the basics. That marketing is probably the biggest crucial part of selling a house because we want to get it to everybody that's a willing and able buyer, right? Because if we're able to do that, then we can put an actual product in front of a person that's willing to buy it. All the other stuff doesn't really matter, right? And when we do our studies and we do our analytics, we're able to kind of deter and figure out where exactly the math is working and where your exposure is going to be at, whether it's geofencing or anything like that. So when you do get with an agent, I think regardless, it's very admirable to try to sell your property on your own, but right now it's just so tough, and the headaches aren't worth the savings.
Right.
And with a professional firm, it's very easy, it's seamless. We have all the tools in house to kind of help maximize your dollars.
Right. So, you know, here at the Schrader Group, we have award-winning marketing.
Yes, we
That's
do.
True story.
Very proud. Very proud.
But do you want to go over some of the things that we do that, you know, to help give other agents ideas or?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is we always include a stager with our listings. We found that not only do we sell the house for more money, but we sell it faster 82% of the time. We also couple that with virtual staging. We also couple that with Matterports. It's drone footage, professional photography. April's amazing. She does great things. So, you know, when people actually get their photos back, they're like, wow, this is my house. Maybe I don't want to sell. You know? And sometimes that happens. But at the end of the day, it's just
social
because
media too.
Your first impression is very big. We talked about that with the outside exterior.
Yes.
But then it goes deeper. And then we get our marketing department, and Stacy does an amazing job here.
Award-winning.
Award-winning, yes. We've been very, very blessed.
I go into her office and I'm like, where'd you get all these trophies?
I know, you got to put sunglasses on because it blinds you sometimes. But but it all matters because we need exposure.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, California, New York, those are all our markets too. So when you look for a
Yes.
property in San Antonio, Texas, you're getting maximized coverage all over the nation. And honestly, it's crossing over global to certain different areas. But
And we're members of multiple MLSs.
we are,
right?
we are, and that's the other thing that we do as a team is we want to be in multiple MLSs that way we're able to maximize. So, for example, we could be in Seguin, but we're going to be in Sabor, we're going to be in Four Rivers,
Right.
Central Texas, Abor, and we're going to be in HAR,
So
which
much
is going over to
exposure,
Houston
yeah.
as well. Because if someone's looking in that area that's kind of 20 miles away, 60 miles away, 80 miles away, well, they could get it from different sources.
Right.
That way, more agents could kind of get it there. And let's be real, a buyer's going to buy a house when they have an agent because they're qualified, they're already ready to go forward with the process. So we want to appease not only the buyers out there, but also the agents, because the agents are the ones with the golden tickets. And those are the ones we want.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. Well, we hope that you have learned a couple things to avoid when getting your home ready to list. I'm Lauren, this is Raul, and we'll see you next time.
It was a pleasure. Y'all have a blessed day, and we'll talk to y'all soon.